Thanks, Yassine. Good afternoon. As Yassine mentioned, my name is Andrew Behlmann. I'm a partner in the Bankruptcy and Financial Restructuring Group at Lowenstein Sandler. I'm going to give of the background landscape of what we're dealing with in the current economic climate amidst the pandemic that we're all painfully familiar with and aware of. And then Bruce is going to shift to some of the practical real-world takeaways from a credit, bankruptcy, and collection standpoint. So with that, I'm going to take a 30-second detour. You may have noticed on the first screen we had Abe Lincoln on a $5 bill wearing a mask. And one thing that I noticed when we were putting this presentation together, just an interesting bit of trivia, is that Jack Lew was the Treasury Secretary at the time. It was 2013. The country was, just after the tail end of the last economic downturn caused by obviously the credit market collapse of 2008, 2009. Mr. Lew held a variety of posts in the Obama administration, but one thing that was particularly entertaining to the economics and money nerds among us is that the scribbles you see on the screen were his signature before he became Secretary of the Treasury. And he got a lot of grief, in particular from the administration, about the fact that this is the signature that would be forever emblazoned on any money that was minted during his tenure as Treasury Secretary. So President Obama gave him a fair amount of grief and joked publicly about it. And Mr. Lew spent some time polishing his signature. So the $5 bill that you saw on that front cover slide had his new and improved signature instead of the 3-year-old scribbles at the top. Just found that kind of funny and figured we'd pass it along. So then and now, we're now, depending on your view of when the pandemic began, anywhere from a year to 9 months, depending on where geographically you're looking and what you're using as the starting point. But from the US, we're really about 9 months into the pandemic as we know it. So let's take a quick look at the onset. Going back to March, we saw retail just take a massive hit. You saw several dozen states, you had governors implementing and legislatures implementing all sorts of emergency orders and emergency statutes to implement shutdowns because frankly, nobody knew what was going to happen. Nobody knew how to stop the spread of this virus at that point. And the widespread reaction in a lot of locations, and understandably so, was, we just need to prevent people from going out and being together. And one of the ways that governments did that was to shut things down, to shut down the so-called non-essential businesses. And obviously, a debate over what's essential and what's not would be a multiple-hour discussion unto itself. But the reality is governments were just reacting to a true emergency. And what you saw was that most retailers of non-essential discretionary type items, clothing, to some extent electronics, bars and restaurants, things that people didn't need just to subsist, saw their sales just absolutely decimated at the onset of those shutdowns. Electronics are one that's particularly interesting. They sort of straddled the middle between the huge downturn and the businesses that saw upticks. The reality there is, you had a lot fewer people going out and making discretionary purchases, but a lot of that was offset by people, myself included, and probably a lot of you, that had to run out and buy equipment to enhance their ability to work from home. I couldn't work 10 hours a day from a laptop. I had to go out and buy an iMac. A lot of people, I think, were in the same boat. But things like clothing, auto dealers, home furnishings, bars and restaurants, department stores, just got absolutely decimated in the first few weeks. On the flip side of that coin, things like health and personal care. We're all familiar with the fact that there's like an 8-week backlog still to this day to get a Peloton bike. Things that enabled people to do the things they used to do outside the home, in the home, saw pretty significant growth in demand as a result of people being stuck at home. Grocery stores. I remember in March and April going to the grocery store and waiting in line for an hour and a half just to get into Wegmans to go buy groceries. The demand when there was no ability to just go out to eat or order in or what have you, was a big demand shift. Bars and restaurants are a mixed bag. We've seen an enormous number of bars and restaurants that have closed for good. Some did manage to ramp up curbside pickup and delivery, and stayed afloat and stayed in business. In some states, much to their credit, permitted to-go liquor sales, New Jersey included, surprisingly, so that bars and restaurants could continue to sell what really is their highest margin item, alcohol to go. There's a restaurant near my house that opened, I think they rebranded, and they had just opened in like late January when all of this hit. And everybody was worried that they were going to go out of business. And the governor of the state of New Jersey implemented an executive order that allowed bars and restaurants to sell alcohol to go. And now this place does a robust craft beer business alongside their food business, and they're thriving. So it's been a mixed bag for that industry, but needless to say that the bar and restaurant industry was hit very, very hard at the onset.